Welcome to Pensar Basketball. If you're joining us now, Luka Magic stuns the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Dallas Mavericks, after coughing up game four, pull out a really major win, a win in which Vegas had them absolutely as underdogs on the road. The OKC Thunder lose a must win game. A lot of things went wrong for OKC. Some of it was shot making, a lot of it was process. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what Luka Doncic did to overcome his demons and overcome one of the worst games that I've seen him play in game four. And we're also going to talk about the Boston Celtics advancing to the conference finals and potentially talk a little bit about what makes that team potentially dangerous, but also what might be a hindrance to them actually winning the championship this year. If you're new around here, please hit like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. We are slowly on our way to 10,000 subscribers. And right now, we're going to go to Luka Doncic. And right after that, we're going to break down the games.
Good. Just trying to focus on basketball, trying to win the game.
Obviously, a great defensive effort. What was the key? What were you on first?
Just the same. I think we've been playing great defense, but some little stuff we didn't do in past game we did today. I don't know how many offensive rebounds they had, but they had like 4 in the first 3 minutes, and then we cleared that up, and we just played with a lot of pace.
When you say focus on basketball, you're talking about your mindset, your mentality going into this game?
Yeah.
In what ways was it different?
Just focus on basketball. Remember the thing I love to do, and just play basketball, man.
Luka, it seemed like there was, obviously throughout the year, but especially in a playoff game like tonight, it was real physical. There was a lot of, alley-oops and, in general. What is it like to have a safety valve with, Derek, both Dereks and Daniel and everybody? What was that like tonight?
Big. They can jump. Both centers are very tall, and they can jump, so I just throw it up there. And D. Jones is out of this world. The way he jumps is just insane. I never saw something like that. But he was knocking down threes too, so he's a complete player.
You obviously 30-point triple-double, shot the ball well, but how satisfying was it for you to seal this with that block and transition?
A bit. Next year, all NBA defensive team. No, but just it was, he kind of, the ball escaped a little bit for him, so that's why I got the block.
Luka, you guys have been really good after a loss. Just what does it say about the resiliency of this team and just the focus and the mindset, like you said, coming into tonight?
Just our mentality. We know the last game we played against them at home, we let it go. It was our mistakes, and they hit shots. So our mentality just in the playoffs, it's first to 4. So you got to win 4 before they do. So you got to go game by game.
Your last big game in the playoffs was 35 points against the Clippers, and that happened to be Game 5 in Los Angeles. Do you think it's a coincidence that you're...
Knock on wood. So we do so but
in terms of you stepping up in a Game 5 when the series is tied 2-2, do you think maybe there's something extra?
Well, yeah, the whole team stepped up. I couldn't do it without my teammates. Everybody that came on the floor gave 100% energy, and we play as a team. We win as a team. We lose as a team, and this team is special, man. We've only been together for 5 months, and I've been having a lot of fun with this team.
Obviously, Game 5s are looked at as swing games where it could go either way. Obviously, you were able to kind of put your imprint on the game early. Is that what you kind of wanted to do from the opening tip? I saw you get that 3 to go down.
Well, no, I wasn't focused if I'm going to make 3 or 2 or 1. I just was focused on playing basketball, having fun out there, playing with my teammates, and just win the game.
You said several times, focus on playing basketball. Wasn't a lot of conversation with the referees tonight. Was that something intentional, and how do you think that helps you if it was intentional?
Yeah, intentional. Like I said, just focus on basketball. I talked to them normal, without complaining and nothing. I think it was the whole game, nothing. So I just go out there, hoop, have fun, man. The have fun was the old Luka. So smile on my face.
Y'all had just 2 free throw attempts through 3 quarters and still managed to have a double-digit lead. What do you think went into that? Did you like the shot selection, the way you guys were pushing it?
Great shot selection. A lot of times they were 2 on me and Kai, so we just played a big. The corner was wide open, the cuts. So, and we play with a lot of pace. I think we have great shot selection, just a couple bad shots, but otherwise it was great shot selection.
You were getting to the painted area a lot, but you only had 3 free throws. Does that surprise you?
I don't want to talk about it. No, I'm good. I'm focused on basketball.
You went all night.
During timeouts, it seemed like you were very intentional about talking to all your teammates and leading. Was that something that you emphasized entering this game, was leadership on the court?
Yeah, I think it's me and Kai. We are the 2 leaders of the team, and no matter what, they made a run and we stayed together, especially in the fourth quarter at home, which is very difficult to stay together, but we did. Everybody talked, everybody was supporting each other, and that's what we need to do.
Luka, this Oklahoma City fan base has taken a little bit of a liking to you, so to speak. As a competitor, do you thrive on just being able to silence the crowd the way you did in the game that you had?
I love it. And when they chant Luka sucks, it gets me going. Man. It's even better.
Did you happen to see the 2 fans that wore Luka T-shirts with a pacifier?
No. With the what?
Something baby pacifier.
They love me, though. They went, they pay for jerseys, for the shirts to put my face on. It's a lot of attention.
Talk about the players, 2 big men, Gavin and Lively, tonight.
Great. They've been great the whole playoffs, the whole season, just fighting. They hit a lot. They get hit a lot, especially on the rebounds. But just playing hard, man, and knocking down free throws, big time. Thank you.
Man, the Dallas Mavericks are exactly who we thought they were, I would say. I think that's fair to say. Would you? All right. I believe I had picked this team to go to the Western Conference Finals. I do have to refresh my takes. I say a lot of stuff sometimes, but yes, Dallas and Denver, it does look like it's going to go that way. Historically, Game 5s are very much swing games, and that is true. Towards the end of this live, we're going to talk a little bit about Scotty Barnes as well, and how much, honestly, for years, he's reminded me of Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic. We'll talk about the advantages of being a large, gifted playmaker and how much that advantage really shows up in the playoffs. So we'll talk about that towards the end. Also, to those of you who have been missing Pensar basketball videos and are like, hey, Rob, we love these lives, but when are we getting a new video? Getting a new video tomorrow. And that new video might be one of my best scripts ever. It is a very short video. I believe it'll be a little under 5 minutes. I got to work on it all night. I'm going to drop it tomorrow. I hope it goes mega viral, man. A lot of my Denver Nuggets content has been going crazy on Instagram. We got 1 million views on that Aaron Gordon video. Let's aim for 1 million views with this one. Our channel very recently crossed 5.5 million views, channel views. That's a pretty big deal. I was reflecting back, getting a little sentimental, realized that exactly at this point last year, we had around 5,000 subscribers. 2 years ago, we had 100 subscribers. We're closing in on 10,000. I hope you can help be part of that, and I hope that we can grow from here and be even better. I certainly aim to be a much better content creator as we go forward, examining my weaknesses, examining my biases, and I think that watching every single minute of every single playoff game has been extremely, extremely helpful for me to understand schemes and understand things that maybe, as much as I think I understand about basketball, the minute you think you're done, right? So it's good to go in with this wide-eyed approach, almost examining it like an emerging coach. You want to really have that, hone that muscle memory, hone that vernacular, understand every single play, every single team, every single player on every single team, and how they're operating, and maybe get a deeper insight into basketball, because the deeper insight you have to basketball, ultimately there's reflective and then there's predictive basketball analysis, right? Sometimes people are very reflective because they use numbers and then they use other people's takes and all that stuff, but they're not very predictive, which is to say that they probably couldn't have told you coming into this series that the Dallas Mavericks were going to win. They probably couldn't have told you after game 2 that the Denver Nuggets were going to come back. But again, when you watch this shit enough, it does become a lot more predictable. You start seeing, I make sometimes when I'm watching basketball with a friend or with my girlfriend, I start calling out makes and misses as the shot is taken, right? I don't wait to see if it goes in or not. I just say that's in, that's out. And I try to see how often I'm right and how often I'm wrong. I'm trying to get it up to about 80%. I'm like, that's short, That's long. And I'm just trying to see it on the release. I'm trying to see it on the execution. And there is a pattern. There is a pattern in terms of the shots that go in and the shots that go out. And tonight, a lot of shots went in for the Dallas Mavericks. So let's talk about that. The Dallas Mavericks win a must win. In my opinion, it's a must win. The OKC Thunder had home court advantage. They just lost home court advantage, right? They got a tough one. I got to tell you, I believe the Dallas Mavericks should have won game 4. I believe this series should be over right now, but it's not over because the Dallas Mavericks shot themselves in the foot. As Luka mentioned and alluded to, so I'm hoping someone had a conversation with him or he had a long conversation with himself because, quite frankly, his performance, specifically his performance, regardless of what's happening with the referees, injuries, etc., in game 4 was pathetic. He missed a really, really clutch free throw down the line that just cannot happen with a player like this. And I don't think that people fully, because he's never won an MVP. He was really close this year. He really is a basketball prodigy. And I think I say that, I don't know what other word I could use for someone like this, right? He's on a completely different level. There are players who are very good basketball players, like a Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Brunson, Jayson Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, etc. And then there are players on a completely different planet in terms of how they're seeing the game, in terms of how they're manipulating defenses, in terms of how they're reading all levels of the defense. And he's really, really on that one of one territory as a wing player in the NBA. He really does stand apart. And it's not just his shot making, it's not just his physicality, it's not just the fact that he is suddenly way more engaged defensively, punctuated, of course, by that block on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which he humbly accepted as Shai just lost his balance. He's been a lot more engaged, but honestly, he's just that damn good. It's what we say about Luka. He's, just that damn good. It's the same thing we just say about Nikola Jokic. He's just that damn good. You're not going to stop him. The gap between him and the next guy is very large. And I think, as much as, people like to look at the numbers and like to look at the records because those are easy, you need to watch him and Shai play basketball. And I think you'll understand that there is a significant gap between how these two guys operate, how physical they are, how stoppable they are, how patient they are, and how gifted they are as scorers, how dynamic they are as shooters. You can make a lot of cases that Shai does a lot of things well that Luka maybe doesn't do as well. He's a better defender than Luka, no questions asked, right? He does a lot of things better than Luka, but Luka's a much better player, and it showed up tonight. The Dallas Mavericks are also a far more experienced team, and that also showed up tonight. Experience in the playoffs really comes down to this. I was thinking, on a walk with my dog after the game. I've been doing this lately. If you notice, I've been doing these lives like a little bit of a pause between. Obviously, if I do these lives right after the game, there's going to be a lot more people in. People who just watched it. I'm doing them a little bit later because what I've started to do now, especially over the last 2 to 3 months, is I've started to take an hour to reflect on the game that I watched instead of being the first to the punch. I don't want to be the first to the punch. I want to be the best to the punch. And sometimes you need to digest and you need to think about what you're saying so you get calm, right? It's funny. So I was thinking about a good analogy for this. And I was like, you know what? It's like, it reminded me of a story, from when I was 21 years old. So I'll share that with y'all. Tariq saying Chet is a rookie, give him a damn break. Oh, come on, man. Like I think the OKC Thunder are phenomenal. The fact that they've gotten this far, no shade to them at all. They will be back. They were the number 1 seed for a reason. They're going to be a very, very good team next year. But this is an essential part of the growing curve, right? They're a very enthusiastic, very hardworking team that sometimes gets in their own way. And tonight, I believe a lot of the nerves and the pressure and some of their decision making was very not right. It was not a composed team. And, you don't have to be 21, 22 to make these mistakes. Sometimes you're 22 and you're LeBron James. But even LeBron James made mistakes at 22 that he wouldn't dare to make at 32, right? There's an experience to this. And, as a brash young kid who often thought that I didn't need to listen to my elders and thought that, I was on par with people who were significantly older than me and more experienced than me. And, I'd walk into a job as a writer and, I might be getting notes from my editor as a sports writer. And my first thing was, well, you don't write better than me. There's the ego of being young, and nothing that I've experienced, about the gap between youth and wisdom was as punctuated as this one girl that I saw was at a club or a bar or whatever in Toronto when I was 21. And I eyed her and I thought she was absolutely gorgeous. And I summoned up the courage to go talk to her, bought her a drink, bought her a second drink, bought her a third drink, was chatting her up all night. I think I probably spent like 2 hours chatting this girl up, summoned up the courage to ask her to come to my place. She said, all right. And I was like, dope. This is great. Um, I think I got distracted for about 5 minutes, looked over, this other guy just swooped in. He was older, he was more experienced, he had a nice car. Um, he was probably, taller, better looking, whatever. He's smooth. He was a smooth operator. He watched me work this girl up literally all night. And he was just like, buddy, you're young, you're stupid, you pay for the drinks. When I came back, I looked at him, he looked at me, and in that moment, I knew that I had lost to the more experienced player, It happens sometimes. There's something about being mature and having some wisdom about you that you don't have to rush into things. Remember the first time you were with a girl and your parents were out of the town and you rushed up those stairs real fast, right? Those clothes came off like that. There was no revving up of the engines. There was no setting the mood. There was no dimming the lights. It was straight up, how fast can I make sure that I'm there? That's youth. In a nutshell, that's pretty much youth. It's excitedness. It's not knowing what you don't know before you don't know it, not know it, right? Tariq said 2 hour. I don't know how charismatic I was, but I was about $35 to $40 lighter in the wallet. I mean, that's not that bad. The dirty Mac teaches us all at least once from facts. I gotta say, the Oklahoma City Thunder, for all of their charisma, for all of their excitedness, for all of their enthusiasm, for all of their togetherness, for all of their ambition, for all of their confidence, for all of their bravado, for all of their cockiness, for all of their hard work, they're still a very inexperienced team that has not been here. I hope that they all knew that coming into this, and they knew that they were up against a team that frankly has been here. Kyrie Irving has been in game 7s. He's been in game 6s. He's been in playoff battles. He's a tried and true veteran, right? It's very rare for a rookie or a second-year player, third-year player to respond well to these high-pressure moments, which is what makes what Derek Lively is doing right now so beyond impressive. Like, I have been just mesmerized by his composure, especially with the Hacka Lively stuff, right? I mean, it's incredible the fact that he had the stage presence down the stretch to not only embrace getting fouled, kind of being a good sport about it. A lot has been made of, the controversial Mark Daignault, his strategy of hacking Derek Lively. He's not Shaquille O'Neal, and he's actually making them, and he's made them pay back-to-back games on this. So they might have to abandon the strategy. Some adjustments tonight. OKC Thunder, they do go away from Josh Giddey as a starter. I think it was a beneficial, thing. Unfortunately for them, their sniper, Isaiah Joe, he ends up going 2 for 9, including 2 for 8 from 3. They certainly needed more from him. Lou Dort goes 2 for 8 from 3. Chad Holmgren goes 1 for 5 from 3, which continues an abysmal, shooting series for him. He only had 4 rebounds tonight. That is unacceptable, right? He's battling. He's just not big enough. He's getting boxed out. He's getting bodied. Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford are simply bigger than him. They are just bigger than him, and that is going to show up more in half-court settings. That's going to show up more in the playoffs as the pace crawls a little bit and things, get a little bit more physical and a little bit more chippy. And I'm sure Chet is going to hit the weight room this year, and he's going to come back beastly next year. I have no doubt. This guy has been working hard since Minnesota, and he's been incredible rise. And he's just an incredible player. I'm amazed by some of his rim turns. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander tonight, he had 30 points. He showed up. I think he showed up big. But again, there are limitations to Shai. And I think one of those limitations is passing. I think he's just not nearly as dynamic a passer as he needs to be. And I think everyone around him needs to be a little bit better and a little bit more mature. I do think Josh Giddey responded really well off the bench, including hitting like a couple of floaters and a couple of, weird shots. And he even hit a 3 tonight. So he was good off the bench with 11 points. I think Kason Wallace was unfortunately just missed some shots, man. He had some nice open ones. The Thunder continued to fight. which is what I really admire about them and what I admire about the Minnesota Timberwolves, that despite the fact that they are facing a team that is better than them, they continue to fight. For the Dallas Mavericks, PJ Washington, not quite the 27, 28 points we've been getting from him recently, but Derrick Jones Jr. just fills right in. Fun fact, Derrick Jones Jr. is a minimum contract guy, and he is not only putting up 19 points, he is also guarding the best player and an MVP candidate in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and doing a pretty phenomenal job on the other end. Daniel Gafford goes off for 9 points, but really this game came down to Luka. It was Luka every step of the way, from the first quarter to the second quarter to the fourth quarter. They just needed him, and it was just big shot after big shot. He hit the timely ones, he hit the pace builders, and then he hit the pace stoppers. Like, he was great. Off the bench, they got Derek Lively with 11 points and 10 rebounds, and he was monstrous. Like, really just everywhere and anywhere all at once. Like, he was just awesome. Loved this game for him. And also, an interesting wrinkle, Jaden Hardy gets, a rotation minutes. And I thought that it was an interesting experience to see it. It didn't result in very much, but I thought his shot making and just his threat to score, he is one of only 2 Mavericks that end the night on a negative in terms of plus minus, but I don't necessarily think that was too reflective of how he played. I just don't think he's a great defender. So maybe that's something to think about, and I probably would have rather gone with Dante Exum, but that's just me. It's good to see a young player get the run. He was a second round pick. They're eventually going to have to make a decision on him. Nice to see, him getting rode. And typically, young players and role players tend to play better at home. So personally, if he was going to get minutes in this series, I kind of would have wanted to see him get it on, but maybe Jason Kidd just needed to test out the waters and see if they had something in him in terms of a playoff performer. He certainly has a skill set that would lend itself to being a good playoff player down the line. Yeah, overall, I think, the Mavericks just competed very hard defensively. They hit incredibly tough shots. They maintained a pretty healthy lead throughout this game. They blew it up really, really big. They led by as much as 18 at one point. They fouled quite a bit, quite a bit. And I personally believe that foul on Luka Doncic, in which Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went to the line, unless I'm mistaken and they weren't in the penalty, that was not a shooting foul. I mean, he nudged him with his arm. Shai went down and then hurled the ball at the basket. That's ridiculous. That was not like within the shooting motion. So I've found all year that especially all playoffs, that the refs have been infuriating just because of how inconsistent they are with what constitutes as a shooting foul, what constitutes as a moving screen, what constitutes as a legal screen. It's like they're calling the same thing different ways for different teams every single night. And it's really frustrating because I am watching these games and I'm rewatching some of them, and I can give you an example of a foul that's called on Indiana that's not called on OKC, or I can give you an example of a foul that's not called on Luka that's called on Shai every single night. So it's just really weird to see the inconsistency in terms of how the referees are looking at this. Nevertheless, tonight, the OKC Thunder, the Dallas Mavericks bounced back from an abysmal free throw shooting night with, better free throw shooting numbers, but they barely went to the line. A lot of those free throws that you're seeing there, 10 for 13, despite the fact that they attacked the rim pretty much all night. They were late. There were a lot of the Hack-a-Lively stuff, and, kudos to Derek Lively. He hit them. But man, they also fouled Daniel Gafford. If I'm not mistaken, like, how many times did Luka go to the line tonight? I think he went like 2 times or something. Like, yeah, he got there 3 times. Like, wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I think it's a synergy, like this Dallas Mavericks team, going in for Kyrie, going in for PJ Washington, going in for Daniel Gafford. Like, they made some major changes to their roster mid-season and coming into this season when they pulled the plug on the Grant Williams experience. And frankly, I think that it's been really interesting to see how these pieces mesh together and how they fit, because I think they fit incredibly. You have constant pressure on the defense because you have constant motion from the other players. Luka and Kyrie each are stars, like they're real stars with the basketball, right? They can do magical things. If Luka was to miss game 6, I wouldn't completely count the Mavericks out. I'm not saying they would win without him. I'm just saying they could win without him. That's how good Kyrie is if you put him into that lead creator role. You know, he's a magician with the basketball. It's not just his shot creation. It's not just his dribble drive and penetration and finishing ability and all the mid-range stuff. It's just how he dissects you, you know? And then you got Luka, who basically does it on an even higher level, in my opinion. He just reads every mistake you're making. And the OKC Thunder, unfortunately, tonight, they missed a lot. They made a lot of mistakes. I think um, they attacked set defense way too much. They attacked the rim a little too much. You might say, well, old philosophy, attack the rim all the time. No, not when, your percentages are dropping every single game and you're not making those shots. I mean, it's not an efficient shot. They typically say layups and threes are the most efficient, right? That's the most efficient shot diet, layups and threes. Well, when refs are calling it really tough and you don't have the play finishing talent and they have beasts inside defensively and they're really stopping your rim attack, 58% shooting at the rim is not going to cut it. And that's pretty much what they've been doing in the playoffs so far. So that is just not an efficient shot. That's not a super efficient shot. You know what I mean? Like on the other end, the Dallas Mavericks are dissecting you, and the Dallas Mavericks shot 10% better from the field. They shot 15% better from the 3-point line tonight. And that's the game. That's the game. Like in a nutshell, that's the game. This game was over in the second quarter, in my opinion. I mean, the Thunder made it interesting to close out the half, but take a look at the game cast. I believe that. I mean, I took the Dallas Mavericks coming into this game. I also took the Boston Celtics in this game, and we'll talk about the Boston Celtics shortly, right after. But I found it really interesting that, I find personally, I just find looking at win probability really interesting because the algorithm, it does not lie. It seldom lies. It's wrong like one in like every 25 games, and this teetering effect, like where OKC comes out to this 8-2 run to start, and then Dallas starts to climb up. It was never, ever not Dallas's game after the first quarter. It never stopped being their game. This was their win probability pretty much all the way through. They were at 99.2% when they hit 89-71 and Thunder call that full timeout. And then to the Thunder's credit, they actually did come back and they tried to make it competitive. They closed the lead to 8. And then boom, it's more shot making. It's those big, like they don't let the run get completely out of hand. Teams are going to make their runs. They're going to make some shots, especially when you have really talented players, Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren. And, you got Lou Dort being super physical, forcing turnovers. Like you're going to get opportunities to create a run. The response is very important though. And momentum is everything in basketball, right? Momentum is everything in basketball. You can tell there was a real struggle here in the first quarter for momentum, right? And the Dallas Mavericks chose to hit early and hit really hard, and they wanted to keep a 10-point cushion. And that's management. That's game management. They wanted to keep that 10-point cushion because you never know when you hit a drought. I mean, we saw droughts. We saw a drought in the Boston Celtics game and the Cavaliers game, in which the Boston Celtics just couldn't score a basket, and the Cavaliers came damn near right back. I mean, they were never going to win that game, but they closed it to within 3 in the fourth quarter without Karis LeVert, without Donovan Mitchell, without Jared Allen. Runs happen, droughts happen, and that's why mature teams learn to play with a lead, and they also learn to come back from deficits. So, yeah, I thought this was a very mature win for the Dallas Mavericks, and if there was any doubt that this team is ready to compete for a championship, I think those doubts are settled in this very crucial Game 5 win, where a lot of young players showed up on the road, and if you follow basketball long enough, that's usually not the case. Again, really huge fan of Derek Lively. I cannot stop saying enough nice things about this guy, and I remain very hopeful about the Oklahoma City Thunder future. I believe that they are going to be a team to be reckoned with for years, but I do believe that they need to shore up some of their weaknesses. And I think one of their biggest weaknesses right now is what they're going through right now, which is inexperience. It's getting through these really tight spots where the defense starts to get really physical. It's dissecting the defense, right? It's reading the floor. It's not rushing, right? Like there was a play in which Wiggins attacks the rim over like 2 defenders, 3, and there was a third defender shading, and he had a wide open pass, right? Wide open to Chet. And I know Chet's not hitting shots, right? But there's so many times in which I feel like the Oklahoma City Thunder made the wrong play tonight. And that's really not indictment of them in terms of their intelligence as basketball players, their talent level. None of those things are in question right now. It's just about knowing when you're playing from behind pretty much the entire game, and knowing who you're playing against, which is basically two basketball maestros and two geniuses in Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, who can really just swing the game 10 points on a whim in 2 minutes. It's understanding what your margin for error is. And I think that the Oklahoma City Thunder made a lot of mistakes tonight that were exacerbated by the fact their shots just did not fall. If their shots do fall tonight, maybe we're talking about a pretty competitive game. But you don't want to be in a super close game against a team that's better than you. You want to blow them out. You want to smoke them. You want to play with a lead. The Dallas Mavericks did to the Oklahoma City Thunder what the Oklahoma City Thunder should have done to the Dallas Mavericks tonight, which is hit early and sustain the counter punches. They didn't do that. So let's move on before we wax poetic for 5 hours. Here's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren.
Shai, what offensively, you guys just kind of couldn't get it together. You got up to a good start. What happened that you couldn't continue what started throughout the entire game offensively?
I'm not too sure. Just being like in the heat of it, in the moment, it's hard to tell exactly what it was. But I felt like we played like the right way offensively tonight. Got a lot of good looks that we usually make and just didn't go in. You live with those results. Like we had the right intentions, made the right plays, right passes, got good looks. Just didn't go our way. That's what it felt like. I don't know exactly what it is.
When you have a change in the offense, a starter, like Josh been starter all season, does that throw you off at all in getting used to a new starter in the lineup like that with Isaiah starting instead of Josh?
I didn't feel like it. Coach has been like, he's mixed up lineups so much this year. We've had guys hurt a couple times this year, so we've gotten used to like different lineups. I think that has to do with some of it. But we have like everybody be ready to do what they needed to do tonight mentality. So it didn't really feel different.
Hello?
Mark pointed to kind of what you did about just the way that the offense seemed to flow a little bit better, but he felt like there were some just detail plays that you guys missed defensively that you hadn't missed in the previous couple games. What were some things defensively you feel like might be controllables for Game 6?
It felt like rebounding, for sure. I feel like every time we were about to make a run, they got like offensive rebound. But beyond that, I'm not too sure. Those are just the things that it felt like. I'll have better answers once I watch a film and stuff. But that's what it felt like.
So obviously, you guys took 43s tonight. Just how much of what Dallas did defensively do you feel influenced, those attempts?
Yeah, they make you move the ball, make you make multiple efforts offensively, make you spray the ball. Their bigs are parked down there pretty much the whole game. They bump out and stuff like that. But I thought we did a pretty good job of attacking and moving the ball. The looks just didn't really go in.
And obviously, playoff series are designed to, have deep scout, deeper than you would have in the regular season. So, guys like Jalen and Chet, they're under a different microscope than the regular season. Just what have you maybe told them throughout the series as, some of the looks they maybe enjoyed in the regular season are being taken away?
I haven't really told them anything or needed to. I felt like both of those guys are high IQ basketball players and guys that put their hard hat on every night and do whatever it takes for us to win. I'm not worried about those two in a playoff basketball atmosphere at all.
Is this overall, over the course of the series, is this as congested a paint as you've had to attack, would you say, in your career?
This game or in the series?
How they're defending and packing the paint.
It is very congested. I feel like I see that a lot though, with that being my main thing offensively. But yeah, it's definitely an emphasis for sure, and has been a lot. And I think that's why we are passing and spraying out to the 3-point line.
Say on a night where you guys only have 8 turnovers, don't let them go crazy on the offensive glass, and just seem like you guys did all the little things. It just feel like a night that shots just didn't fall?
For the most part, yeah, that's what it felt like. There's probably things, there's 100% things we could have done to probably still get the game. We'll look at those. Don't want to make excuses. You can't always rely on shots falling. Yeah, don't want to make excuses. We'll look at those things and try to clean those up for next game so that even if those shots don't fall, we still have a chance.
Go ahead.
The odds of falling behind and going on the road for a perhaps clinching game are against you there. What about the mood of the team and just the mindset of going into a game you just have to win down there?
Yeah, it'll be fun. Our mood won't change. Our mentality won't change. It's one game at a time. We wanted to win this game tonight as bad as we're going to want to win the next game and the next game. So I don't think it'll change too much.
Anybody else? Thank you, Shaq.
Tough.
Go ahead. Go first, Go ahead.
Chet, you guys deflected a couple of those lob slams late, but, man, they got you early in the game. Can you address the problem and what you can do to fix it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just one thing. There's multiple counterparts that have to kind of come together to limit that, as well as not give up something else while taking that away. So, we just got to get back in film and, see where we can be better for next game on that one, and we're going to do that tomorrow.
Go ahead, Gallo.
Chet, the looks that you guys got offensively from behind the arc seemed like you guys took quite a few and got good ones. How'd you feel about the process on offense despite the results?
Yeah, obviously it wasn't perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but I feel like we did a great job of playing our style of basketball and trusting each other like we've done all year. And even when it wasn't going our way, we continued to trust each other. It led to a couple runs, but we came up short in the end.
Chad, obviously, we talked all series just about the kind of microscope you're under in a playoff series, just game to game, the level of scout, everything, your tendencies, everything. Just how well do you feel you were prepared coming into the series on that front, and just what's that look like, to this point?
I feel like I've prepared, to the highest level that I can. And it didn't start just before the series. The whole season, I've been doing everything to be better for the next game, and that process didn't change leading up to the series. And it's continued throughout the series. I just got to continue to be better and be better for next game to give us a chance to win.
What is it about?
Go ahead, Joel.
What is it about the Dallas defense, or just the playoff setting, just the microscope we talk about, that makes it hard to maybe pop offensively from game to game?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is it's a really good team on the other end, and they're putting their work in just like we are, and they're not going to let it be easy for us, and we wouldn't expect that. So again, we just got to put in the work on our end, and hopefully it puts us in a good spot.
How challenging do you find it that you're such a big option when it comes to the pick and pop, but also you're really needed on the offensive glass and just kind of rebounding? Do you kind of feel like you have to be in two places at one time, or is it really challenging?
Yeah, it's quite hard being in two places at once. It's just kind of trying to find a balance, knowing that you have to do both, and you can't do both on every single play. So, just trying to read the game and see where I can be effective and help make a winning play, and if that's popping or being in position to rebound, or maybe even both sometimes on plays, depending on how it plays out. Just trying to do whatever it takes to win.
You guys have done a really good job limiting Luka, especially as a scorer, throughout the series until tonight. When he gets in that kind of rhythm and you can see, he's feeling good early, what kind of pressure does that put on you guys defensively?
It puts a lot of pressure on you, just like any other really good player. He's going to read what we're doing and how we're trying to take him out and limit him, and he's going to find ways to counter that. And when he counters that, we're going to try and counter that ourselves. So it's like a continuous cat and mouse thing, and Credit to him. He made great plays tonight.
Anybody else? Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard not to root for that team. I mean, their youth, their exuberance, their confidence, their togetherness. They're really great for basketball. I think the OKC Thunder, the Denver Nuggets, it seems like just off court, just seems like really good guys for the most part. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing OKC. And, it's just like a new wave of stars that are coming up and an old wave of stars that are going out. And I'm very excited about the new generation of the NBA with Victor Wembanyama, with Chet Holmgren, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You can probably throw Paolo into that mix. You definitely put Scotty Barnes in there, Anthony Edwards, Luka Doncic. I mean, there's a very, very bright league coming up. Jayson Tatum, so many young players. And of course, you'll be adding, quite a few young players in next year's draft and possibly one or two in this year's draft. And then AJ DeBansa blows it all up in 2026. So I'm very much looking forward to the next 15 years. If I'm alive to see the next 15 years of NBA basketball, I'm very much looking forward to seeing how all these young players develop in their careers. Just as I, was lucky and fortunate enough to witness all of LeBron's career, most of Michael Jordan's career, etc. So it's been cool. Let's move on to the first game of the night, and that was the Boston Celtics versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavaliers came into this game very, very undermanned. How undermanned, Rob? Well, they were not only missing Donovan Mitchell, they were also missing Jared Allen and Karis LeVert as well. So, I mean, it's fortunate for them that they got Dean Wade back. He hasn't been much of a factor offensively at all, recovering from that injury. I have some mud on my face right now because I straight up said Marcus Morris Sr. is not an NBA player, and he goes out for 25 points against one of the best teams in the league, and he was really, really instrumental tonight. I think he was a big part of how they caught back in this game. I think it was a really big part of how they stayed in this game. Evan Mobley popped huge, man. He played 43 minutes. He had 2 blocks, 33 points, seven rebounds. I mean, they finally got it right with him, right? I mean, a lot of the shots were assisted. Some of it was self-generated, though, and I think he played a really, really solid game. Someone who has continued to struggle, whether Donovan Mitchell plays or not, is Darius Garland. Apart from 1 or 2 quarters in this series, he has felt completely outmatched. And I think the Boston Celtics have just really scouted him very well, and he has struggled to find space to navigate. The matchups are not helping. The Boston Celtics have elite perimeter defense across the board, right? So even though maybe they're a little bit compromised inside without Kristaps Porzingis and the paint is wide open, and they're going to struggle immensely in the next round and the round after, regardless of who they face. Quite frankly, they're facing not a very good team in Cleveland right now. Frankly, I think the Cleveland Cavaliers, them outlasting the Orlando Magic was more of a symptom of being a more experienced team, not necessarily a better team, but just the Magic struggled to score, and their half-court offense was so bad that Cleveland just, Donovan Mitchell just willed them through that series, but there was no chance in hell they were going to win this series. So this series ends 4-1. It should have been 4-0. But the Boston Celtics are the Boston Celtics. They got to do this themselves, and they get blown out in game 2, and everyone overreacts, and then boom, they come back and win 3 straight, including, nearly choking away the last game, and quite frankly, letting the Cavaliers hang out a little bit too much in this game. But I felt in the fourth quarter, when it was winning time, they won 28-20 in that quarter, and it was a lot of Jayson Tatum making good decisions. So, let's talk about that fourth quarter. I think it was worthwhile. I mean, look, and Draymond Green said it, after the game, this game was never in doubt. And I believe this game was never in doubt. But, there was a point where it was cut to 83-86 on a Marcus Morris three-pointer, at the 10:59 mark, which was like, oh my God, here we go again. And you could feel it, in Boston. They've had enough of these hiccups with this team where they have blown winnable games constantly, to the point where now it is almost like a character defect of the Boston Celtics that they are inevitably going to make a game close that has no business being close. Without Karis LeVert, without Donovan Mitchell, without Jared Allen, this game had no business being close. Frankly, with those guys, this game had no business being close. But without them, even on the road, frankly, this shouldn't have been close. But at home against this team, you really do play down to your competition, right? And kudos to the Boston Celtics for making it interesting, because had they chosen to blow this team out by 50 points, they probably could have. I'm not disrespecting the Cavaliers when I say that. There's just a lot of talent on Boston, and frankly, they have advantages across the board. We talk about playing with an advantage or playing without an advantage, and the Boston Celtics basically play with an advantage the second they get on the floor. Jayson Tatum is a really good player. Some people say he's not on the level of Luka, and those people are correct. He is not on that level, but he is considerably above any level that Evan Mobley or Darius Garland could have expected to hit in this game in their wildest dreams. The best player and the second best player in this game were both wearing green. I could argue the third best player was probably also wearing green. I could make an argument that the fourth or fifth best player, one of them, was definitely wearing green as well. The Celtics are massively should be favored in this game. In fact, I think they came in as 14 or 13 point favorites. They managed to cover, which is nice, but they almost didn't, which is not so nice. I thought that Jayson Tatum made a lot of good plays down the stretch. So around, let's see here. So the 8-minute mark, Al Horford's found for a three. This is right around the time when Jayson Tatum started to probe the defense a little bit. There was like a play, I believe Dean Wade was on him. Evan Mobley's hanging around the corner, kind of like lobbing around the paint to see who's going to penetrate, because he's focused on protecting the rim. But then Al Horford, who hasn't been shooting super well in this series or throughout the playoffs or most of this year to begin with, he's just camped out in the corner, and all he has to do is make one cross-court pass to him or a skip pass to him, and it's going to be curtains, right? You just need to find the advantage, and you need to play within the shot clock, right? That's what Luka did, and I think to some very diminished degree or a lesser degree, Jayson Tatum did that as well. He showed that he was willing to be patient, that he was willing to wait for gaps to open up, as they inevitably do when another team is, running out a new lineup and playing maybe Tristan Thompson and Marcus Morris Sr., etc., guys who are definitely on the older end. And again, you have the better players, you have the significantly better team, and you're at home, right? And despite the fact that the Celtics have been pretty abysmal at home, I think it should go in their favor that this closeout game was happening at home, because again, closeout games are really hard, and the other team has a lot of psychological advantages coming into this game. When you're playing down like 3 starters, you have a lot of advantages, I would say, or 2.5 starters really, because Karis LeVert definitely would have started tonight. Or at least would have played starter minutes tonight. He was really their only hope as a perimeter scorer, and they leaned heavily on Marcus Morris to fill that load. But I just thought that the Celtics really had a growing up moment in the fourth quarter, and they really put this game away. And as much as I could say this game was never, ever going to be close, it's just weird, even though it didn't feel close, that it got so close. I think Jaylen Brown had a lot of like silly turnovers in this game, a lot of doing too much with the basketball. Sometimes this team, it's just them against them. So I don't know. I don't know what else to make about this. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers have some very, very interesting questions to answer during this offseason about what their roster is going to look like going into next year. They obviously have a lot of appealing pieces and a lot of really talented players. They just don't fit. Their pieces don't fit, and there was probably some hope from JB Bickerstaff that maybe less Donovan Mitchell meant more production from Darius Garland. That hasn't really worked out in their favor tonight. And it didn't really work out in their favor last game either. To just look it over, the Celtics did not defend well in this game. I think they gave up a lot of it was a lot of sloppy, closeouts. There was just a lot of sloppiness at the beginning of this game. They managed to outshoot them just narrowly, right? So the major advantage was just crashing the offensive glass, right? 11-6 on the offensive glass. They did manage to lead by 17, but then they, of course, it happened a little bit late for them. Points in the paint was on Cleveland's side. Fast break points on the Celtics side, but the Celtics turned the ball over more than the Cleveland Cavaliers did. I don't know. I just got to say, I don't think the Celtics played this great a game, and if they play like this against New York, they're going to get beat. I can't believe I'm saying that, but they are going to get beat by New York if they play like this. They might get beat by they might get beat by Indiana if they played like this. A full strength Indiana against this effort, but of course they're not going to play like this against those teams because they would respect them more. Frankly, they might have won this game by more if Donovan Mitchell had played because they would have showed up in a more ferocious way. Sometimes I have a trouble trusting this team because they seem to rev their engines on and off, and I've been going back and forth on whether I'm okay with that or if I'm not. Here's the thing. This is a team that has gone really deep in the playoffs every single year since Jayson Tatum's rookie season. There's no season in which they didn't go at least past the first round. And they continue to, have these deep playoff runs, including a finals run and possibly another finals run coming up if they can get through either the Indiana Pacers or the New York Knicks. And sometimes, things go wrong. Like last year, or the year before, it was Jayson Tatum's shoulder, and there is a certain mentality, when they went to the finals with Ime Udoka, of pace yourself. Don't burn yourself out. Don't be diving and get injured, because it is a war of attrition. Something the New York Knicks are finding out quite well. And so luck is going to play a part into it. You obviously want to survive. You want to get Kristaps Porzingis back. You want to stay sharp, but you also don't want to do more than you need to do. I just feel like it's hard, given all the playoff scars that the team's had, how many times they've gone into a series in which they were favored to win that they lost, to ignore the fact that we have seen this horse and pony show before with the Boston Celtics, in which they sleep on their opponent, they take their opponent lightly. I need to remind you that this is the team that the Detroit Pistons nearly broke their streak against. They were healthy. They had Jayson Tatum and they just slept on him. And I was like, man, as I'm watching Bogdanovich and Cade make play after play after play in the fourth quarter, I'm like, man, wouldn't it be crazy if the quote unquote worst team in the league beats the best team in the NBA. That would be hilarious, right? So I just think this team too often sort of sleeps on their competition, but I do believe they have a different gear. I do believe that all of their playoff experiences are going to factor in at some point. I do think that Jaylen Brown can sometimes get a little bit sloppy with the basketball, and I do think, maybe despite my great affinity for him and my adoration for Drew Holiday, there are limitations to his game at this stage of his career. He's not, Drew Holiday from 4 years ago. So it makes me think, what are the Celtics shot in the second, in the Eastern Conference Finals? Are they a lock to go to the finals, as many people have predicted all year that they would be a lock to go to the finals, myself included? I have said all along, they're going to go to the finals. This is guaranteed. The Eastern Conference, no one's beating them. Okay, well, I'll tell you this. If the Knicks get OG back, I wouldn't put it past them. Whoever, however, makes it past the Eastern Conference Finals is probably going to get absolutely destroyed in the in the finals. And that's where I think it comes down to, how malleable and how adjustable is Jayson Tatum, and where is his game right now when things get really congested and his team requires him to do what the Denver Nuggets required Jokic to do in Game 5, or what the Mavericks required Luka Doncic to do tonight. Does he have that upper echelon gear where he can just put a team on his back for an entire quarter, like Donovan Mitchell, who saved the Cavaliers from extinction in the first round? Does he have that? And does he time it well? We've seen Jayson Tatum average 25, 28 points. We've seen, some of his big scoring outbursts, but it doesn't ever feel like he commands the game the way a superstar does. And he's one of my favorite players. This is not shade on Jayson Tatum. I love Jayson Tatum. I think he's a great all-around player. I think defensively, he's among one of the best wings in the league. I think as a playmaker, he's somewhat underrated. I think as a shot maker, he's very, very hard to stop. But something about the relentlessness with which he attacks, what are your thoughts on Brooklyn retiring Vince Carter's jersey? It's weird. Those are my thoughts. He never played in Brooklyn. That's really weird. He played in New Jersey. I understand you're still the Nets, Um, but like, did they retire Jason Kidd's jersey? I don't know. Brooklyn as a franchise just strikes me as a very weird franchise. But if the Brooklyn Nets retire Vince Carter's jersey before before the Raptors do, that's just weird. Hold on. Yeah, so it's happening next season. So hopefully the Toronto Raptors do the same thing and number 15 goes up into the rafters. I don't believe anyone has been wearing number 15 lately. Who are the number 15s in Raptors history? I know Amir Johnson and Vince Carter, and then they gave it to like some scrubby guy. But lately, it feels like number 7 has not been worn by anybody, and I don't know if number 15 has been worn by anybody recently. So let me just see if there's internally Raptors number 15 jersey all time. Actually, a really interesting trivia to see who wore which number when. So in terms of number 15s in Raptors history, this is actually really fun. Okay, let's turn it over to a trivia moment for Raptors. To those of you who are Raptor fans, I hope you'll enjoy this. Okay, so in terms of number 15, only 6 players have ever worn it, and the last player was Eric Moreland in 2019, which is exactly right around the time where I feel like the Raptors completely got over all their, stuff with Vince. Given how popular the number 15 is across the league in general, it strikes me as a little bit odd that it hasn't been worn in 5 years, and it makes me think that the Raptors internally have made a conscious effort that they are going to retire that jersey, and they didn't want anyone to take it. The same thing here. No one has worn Kyle Lowry's jersey after Kyle Lowry, which is really interesting. Okay. I am, however, curious. What is the most frequently worn jersey in Raptors history? Number 3 has been worn a lot. Number 1 has been worn a lot. Number 4 has been worn by 10 players, including my favorite player. But also prior to that, it was Rondae Hollis-Jefferson and Lorenzo Brown and Luis Scola and Quincy Acey. The Raptors are not going to retire Chris Bosh's jersey ever. Like, that shit ain't happening. Number 4 is going to get retired in Toronto, and ironically, it is going to be. And honestly, it's a funny thing. Denver has a very similar situation because they have Carmelo Anthony's number 15, and guess who wears number 15 now? It's very interesting. Delano Banton is the only player in Raptors history to wear number 45. Aaron Baines, let he be the last person ever to wear number 46. 50 has been worn by 2 players. Does anyone know which? I know Tyler Hansbrough is one of them. Who's the other one? Solomon Alabi. That's interesting. 54 has been worn by 6 players, which is amazing. 55 has been worn by a player that haunts my dreams to this very day, Rafael Arujo, but also Freddie Gillespie. Honestly, my favorite number 55 is by far DeLon Wright. But the rest of these guys can straight up like, wow. 54, Patrick Patterson, I remember. The rest of these guys, I don't remember them wearing these jerseys, man. This is crazy. Obviously 92 and 95 were always going to be like really outlier numbers with Luke Bebe Nogueira and DeAndre Bembry. I don't remember a single player wearing 77. This is weird. Julian Stone, Jake Voschel, that's crazy. Absolutely. 40, I don't remember the last person who wore 40. Ed Stokes, Tim Campton, and Willie Anderson. We'll make this a to-do list item for the Raptors. The Raptors need somebody to wear number 40 next year because this shit is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. How do we have no one wearing number 40? Now, number 1 has been very, very popular for the Toronto Raptors. 18 players have worn it, including our own Grady Dick. But prior to Grady Dick, Will Barton, my favorite whipping boy. Goran Dragic, your favorite whipping boy. Armani Brooks, the hopes. Paul Watson, nope. Patrick Patterson, everyone's favorite whipping boy for an entire 2 years, man. Jason Thompson, Justin Dentman, Dominic McGuire, Jared Jack, wow. Roko Leniukic and Primoz Brezhic, like this, that's so cool. Like two guys from former Yugoslavia wore the jersey back-to-back years. PJ Tucker in his first stint with the Toronto Raptors, and Rod Strickland. Wow, I was very excited when we got Rod Strickland. I was not, however, very excited when we got Chris Childs. That guy was straight up bum. Okay, number 2, Oliver Miller, Rashawn Leonard, Gennaro Pargo. Remember all those guys completely. Wow. Sundiata Gaines. Wow. Why do I remember that name so well? James Johnson, Landry Fields. Yes. The general manager of the Atlanta Hawks was once an overpaid Toronto Raptor who was one of the worst free agent signings ever. PJ Tucker, as if to show us that he had graduated, took the number 2. Nigel Hayes, who I actually, weirdly enough, don't remember Nigel Hayes. Did I sleep through that year? I don't know. Kawhi Leonard, obviously, Jalen Harris, and Jalen McDaniels. I think the most flagrant thing about Jalen McDaniels that pisses me off so much is that he took Kawhi's number. I know we're not going to retire Kawhi's number. I hate the fact that the worst player on my team wears the same number as the best player in franchise history. That's crazy to me. Number 13, Jordan Nwora, David Johnson, Malcolm Miller, Dwight Bikes, Sebastian Telfair, Patrick O'Brien. You know what all these players have in common? None of them are going to be Toronto Raptors next year. Okay. 14, Garrett Temple. Bring him back. Danny Green. Yo, I love everyone who's worn number 14 in Raptors history except for Joey Graham and Menke Batir. Every one of them. Michael Williams, Muggsy Bogues, Maceo Baston, loved them all. Julian Wright, I had hopes. Number 18, Anthony Parker, one of my all-time favorite Raptors. Ben Uzo, the great What If, and Yuta Watanabe, loved him too. And number 17 is very, very, very international. Jonas Valanciunas, Isaac Bonga, and Dennis Schroeder. Let no one ever touch number 17 again after Garrett Temple. And 16, yes, to those of you who don't remember, Peja Stojakovic played that, I think he played 1 or 2 games for the Raptors, and it was awesome. It was awesome to see my favorite player, one of my favorite players at the time, play. 16 is a shooter's number. I hereby petition, three of the greatest shooters in NBA history, Matt Bonner, Peja Stojakovic, and Steve Novak wore that jersey. I petition that if we draft a shooter, we force that shooter to wear number 16. It is a good omen. All right, let's move on from this crazy random aside. Retire number 15. 16 needs to be a shooter. Facts. You can't have that jersey unless you go 25 for 25 in a shooting drill. Okay, let's talk about Scotty Barnes, and then we'll end this live because we're over an hour and it's getting late, and I have to work on that Nikola Jokic video. Straight up. Okay. Watching Nikola Jokic and watching, one of the things one of the things that got me and Brian connected initially was I made this video about Scotty Barnes, and it's a doozy. It's way, way, way back when I was talking about how great he could be and why we need to pair him with, I'll actually play that video to end this live. How's that? I'm going to play this as my outro, just for people to have the refreshed take on it. And it was basically about why the Raptors need to trade for Kevin Durant. And it's a video called The Raptors Are Already Building Around Kevin Durant or something. Anyways, so that's the video that got me and Brian connected initially. And in it, I talked about how Scotty was very Luka-like, that he had a lot in common with Luka. And this was not something that any rational person would have agreed with, but Brian kind of saw what I was saying. And I think that is sort of the grander vision of what Scotty Barnes can be. And then you have to really understand basketball and understand, the leverage and advantage and all the stuff that makes Scotty so great in order to see the grander vision, because obviously Luka Doncic is on a completely different planet than Scotty Barnes right now in terms of craft, execution, shot making, counters, ball handling, all that stuff, right? But there's a vision and a world in which Scotty Barnes ends up being a really athletic version of this type of helio hub. And it's a scary world. It's a scary world if that does happen. I think in the playoffs, sometimes it just comes down to how do you generate advantages, right? We've talked a lot about the physics of space many times. Spacing, can accentuate a superstar, right? You get a superstar player who is a walking mismatch, the way Jokic or Doncic are. No one player can stop these guys. And the problem is when they start getting lower and lower into your defense, the more they get into the middle of the floor, the more they start to see the gaps. They start to see the advantages. See, the Toronto Raptors right now are building this very movement-friendly offense, which can be very deadly for a great decision maker like a Scotty Barnes. one of the most underrated parts of last year, and something I don't think even I've talked about enough, is how much the offense that they're building suits the star that they're building around. It is exactly how you need to play around a Scotty Barnes. And this is something that Brian talked about in his interview with Amit Mann and CJ Miles, in which he said that Scotty went up to him, or like they went up to the Raptors brass and coaching staff, and they said they want to use him in the same places that Denver uses Jokic, kind of at the nail, at the elbow, and just kind of allowing him to work in that area. And so I have no doubt that that is going to be a really major stress focus here for Brian and Scotty in the off season, where they're going to be working on making him a more deadly scorer and a more unstoppable scorer in those areas of the floor. But it's not really to make him, score more points. He's going to score more points regardless by taking more shots and having, a more refined package and getting his percentages up. Really, the advantage there is his size and his vision and his ability to dissect the defense on all three levels, right? So constantly we talk about Scotty's IQ. What does it mean to be a high IQ basketball player, right? It's not just, understanding how to fill lanes. Like Jokic does this really well. It's something I don't think he gets enough credit for. It's not just communication and knowing where guys need to be on the floor, even when your teammates themselves don't know where to be. It's guiding them, instructing them, where to move, and how to organize the offense, right? Something that I think, point guards are typically tasked with. Scotty Barnes has that gift and advantage of knowing where and how things are going to work out within the flow of the game offensively, 2-3 seconds later. That 2-3 second advantage of knowing where the weakness and where the gap is going to be, where the cutter is going to be, when I put the, like for instance, like a Nikola Jokic, right? I'll give you an example, and then this is, not shade on Pascal Siakam, although it's going to probably sound like shade on Pascal Siakam. See, Pascal Siakam has a lot of scoring advantages. So when he puts the basketball, on the ground, and, he's kind of like operating 22 feet from the basket, and he starts backing his defender down. Number one, he doesn't usually have the physicality to move that defender to get to his spot. So that immediately puts him at a disadvantage. But if he does have that advantage, like he does against a Josh Hart or a Dante DiVincenzo in a cross match that's in his favor, then immediately when he starts putting it down, he's not anticipating properly how the defense is going to move and how his teammates are going to be when he puts his head down to when he puts his head up. The entire floor has changed, and often this is going to result in an extra second of lag for him to try to remap the floor and understand what the right pass is. And so in these situations, he's going to make the simple read. He's going to make the read out to the corner shooter that the help defender cheated off of, and it's going to result in probably like an okay looking shot, but it's not going to be like that higher level precision and surgical, stuff that Jokic and Doncic are able to do. Because what Jokic and Doncic are going to do in that situation is they're going to hang the defender, right? They're going to freeze the defense a little bit, and they're going to create openings that weren't there before they started the move. They're going to deliberately draw that second defender in order to open up a shooter, in order to open up a cutter, because they know 3 moves in advance. So I think that is a huge advantage to building around this type of player. And I think that it's probably a good thing that the Raptors aren't building around a super undersized guard. I understand that Emmanuel Quickley is going to be on the smaller side in most matchups as the league gets bigger, but I don't want to overreact, obviously, to the to Darius Garland's struggles. His struggles are his own. Jalen Brunson is undersized and he's doing phenomenally well. But there is some element of physicality that is really showing up, that if the NBA is going to continue to let players play through contact this way, that physical players like Scotty and RJ are going to benefit from that more than finesse players. So I think that it's probably a good thing for the Raptors that their superstar is also one who takes contact so well and finish. And, he's just going to have to get better at finishing through contact. The final thing is just like the physicality of a Scotty Barnes and his ability to move his defender and get to his spots. There's really nothing, that sticks out more in my interview with Brian than our conversation about easy ones. He gets easy ones. That phrase is just tattooed on my brain, and it became a sort of constant with me when it came to dissecting the difference between a star and a non-star, or a superstar and an all-star. You know, like a guy like Christian Wood, right? Or a Pascal Siakam, not to put those guys in the exact same, or a John Collins. Like these guys can put up a 20-point game, no problem. 25 points, no problem. They're buckets, you know? Even a guy like a Cam Thomas, right? He can score like crazy, but he's not getting easy ones. They're hard. They're hard shots. They're difficult shots. They're contested. He's a tough shot maker. You can say that. Gary Trent Jr. can go on a heater and score 30 points. They're not easy. They're not easy shots. He's not getting easy ones. He's not getting to his spots clean. He's being contested. You can see a world in which a better defender could stop him. That's where, you know, you take a guy like Luka or Jokic and you're like, I have no answers. I have no answers in terms of how I would slow this down or stop this, because there's a counter to a counter to a counter to a counter. If you lean super, you know, if you want to force them to their left, they're just going to go right and finish right over you. If you're going to try to bump them off their spots, they're probably going to draw a foul. If you're going to double them a little bit disorganized, they're probably going to freeze the double, and then they're going to find like a cutter or a lob threat or probably a corner shooter for the widest open three, because they're so good and gifted pass in terms of passing. You can probably cut out some of the turnovers that would be typically expected. And that's where, you know, you see the difference between a guy like Luka Doncic, who's going to make like $50+ million next year, and a guy like Jaylen Brown, who's going to make $50+ million next year. They're both really talented. They both score a lot of points, but they're really different in terms of how surgically they can dissect the defense and how stoppable they are. And, you know, while Jaylen Brown, it would not surprise me at all in the next round, he goes off for 30 points for the entire series. Not surprising at all. They're not all going to be the cleanest shots, right? He's a very bold shot taker, right? He's a shot maker, shot taker. And, you know, the Celtics need him to be assertive. But he doesn't pass well. He does not pass well. He does not punish the defense. He's a guy who can really, really accelerate a run. He can stop a run for the other team. He can keep you in games. But when it comes down to like that surgical precision with which, you know, the real masters, the grand masters of the game, like the Michael Jordans, and even I'll put Kawhi Leonard in this, and Kevin Durant and guys like this, there's a completely different level to how they are seeing the game. And I believe, in my humble opinion, that Scotty Barnes is on the precipice of touching that I believe he sees the game the way the greatest players who've ever played the game see the game. Will his skill set ever catch up? Will his body keep up? Will, you know, luck be on his side? Will the Raptors be able to surround him with the type of pieces that he needs to operate? I don't know any of the answers to any of these questions. What I do know is that I can't think of 7 better players in the league under 25 to build the team around. I frankly can't think of way less, honestly. I think Scotty's a fantastic young player, and I'm really looking forward to seeing, given all that he's done. If you think about like year 2 and all those crazy, you know, fourth quarter runs he went on, that was before he was like a good shooter. That was before his handle was super tight. Imagine what he'll be able to do when the handle gets super tight. I really do think people are sleeping on the type of season he can have next year. But most importantly, I feel when you get into those do or die playoff games in which inexperience might show up and you're expecting the Raptors to struggle like most young teams struggle, I feel like they have one guy, you know, who'll be 23 next year, who will probably see the game like a grandmaster. Luka had a lot of success early in the playoffs for this reason. Jokic had a lot of success early in the playoffs for this reason, because when you're that big and you're that gifted as a passer, there's always going to be a chance that you're going to surprise some people in the playoffs. Anyways, make sure to hit subscribe, like, and all that good stuff. I definitely need to go and work on that Jokic video. But as an outro to, you know, to this video, I'm going to play you one of the videos that I'm most proud of in channel history. And this was from about 2 years ago when the Raptors were in contention for trading for Kevin Durant.
Offense is ugly. It's a lot of dribbling, a lot of long twos, and not a lot of motion. The Raptors shoot worse from 3, worse from the field, worse from the line, and have fewer assists than their opponent on a nightly basis. So how is it still working? How is a team that is missing so many bodies, missing Pascal Siakam, still managing to be a top 10 team in the NBA? What is this one mystery stat that is compensating for all of this offensive inefficiency? And how might all of this translate to when the Raptors inevitably make a long-rumored trade for a superstar like Kevin Durant? If you're new around here, my name is Robert, this is Pinsari Basketball. Make sure to hit like, subscribe if you haven't already, grab your coffee, and let's get to it. There's an old saying that you should dress for the job you want, not the one you have. Well, the Toronto Raptors are building around the star that they want, not the one that they currently have. The way I see it, there are three possible outcomes. Either the star they have takes a monumental step, or that star takes enough of a step that he can be traded for a star that they actually want, or a budding star that's already on your roster becomes the star that many think that he can become. In either case, what the Raptors are building doesn't actually work without a top 5 player, especially if the goal, as stated, is championships. And for a team that is so strongly rooted in analytical experimentation, it is a stroke of genius to play the way you would if you already had the top 5 player you so covet, as opposed to wasting this time evaluating and developing into one style, only to have to completely gut it a year from now when the faces change. There's another saying that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and that history tends to repeat itself. And the Raptors have done this exact thing before with DeMar DeRozan, where they swapped the star they had for the one they actually wanted. The one that didn't quite develop into the one that was already there.
Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green going north. DeRozan, and the Spurs want to stay relevant.
I was told he's not too thrilled. If Toronto can pull something amazing off, get Drake.
Is this the dagger? Are the 2019 NBA champions?
If you look at the three teams in the NBA that lead the league in limiting turnovers, it's the Atlanta Hawks, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Toronto Raptors. And they have one very glaring similarity. They all lean very heavily into
heliocentrism.
Trae Young, Luka Doncic, Pascal Siakam. In Siakam's absence, you have seen Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, and Fred VanVleet, to varying degrees of success, try and fill into the role of Siakam. The philosophy of
heliocentrism
is to limit the possibility that the ball could end up either ending in a turnover or end up in the wrong hands for a shot. 55 to 70% of your offense is basically funneling through this player, where this player is either assisting or scoring all of those baskets. This doesn't always look pretty, it doesn't always work, but it does one thing: it limits turnovers. Now let's consider two very different offenses, Golden State and Toronto. The Raptors turn the ball over 12.9 times a game. Golden State Warriors turn the ball over 16.9 times a game. Do you see the trade-off? When things are going right in Golden State, they make up for that quite easily with a barrage of three-pointers at a very high efficiency, being anchored by one of the greatest three-point shooters of all time. But the Raptors don't have a Steph Curry or a Klay Thompson, so they do have to lean very heavily into becoming card counters at the table. This is basically Moneyball. Yeah, some nights it's going to get hella ugly like the other night in OT, but you can begin to see why a team might want to lean into playing this way. The Raptors are currently 9th in offensive rating and 9th in net rating. So how do they do this? Two things. They force more turnovers and they commit fewer turnovers. The result is the Raptors have the largest turnover margin in the NBA at negative 4.5. On a night where the Raptors decidedly win the possession battle, you see extreme examples like the case against Miami, where the Miami Heat took 20 fewer shots than the Raptors. The Miami Heat shot 55% and lost the game. The Raptors are finding creative little angles and ways to game the system against the other team. So now I want to tie all of this together and show you how it relates to Scotty, Luka, Kevin Durant, and Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam this year has been pretty dominant. 1.15 points per possession is really damn good. Luka Doncic has been slightly better at 1.18. Both players dominate heavily in the mid-range, in the post, take a lot of twos. Scotty Barnes, to his credit last year, was at 1.11 points per possession. This year, with a higher volume of threes and with his touch around the rim seemingly evaporating, and a shooting slump and the ankle injury, Scotty Barnes is down to 0.98 points per possession. That's not great. The efficiency of this type of system that the Raptors are building is very much contingent on who is taking those shots. What's the gap between 1.18 points per possession and 1.15 points per possession? I guess it depends on how many possessions, right? But the math is pretty simple. There are more scoring events in an average basketball game than there are in a hockey game, a soccer game, and a football game combined. In the playoffs, when the game slows down, the team with the best player tends to win. The Raptors found this out the hard way. year after year, bumping up against LeBron. LeBron was a significantly more efficient scorer than DeMar DeRozan. The minute the Raptors swapped DeMar DeRozan for a top 5 player like Kawhi Leonard, they won a championship in the first year, because the system that was in place around DeMar basically was tailor-made for a player like Kawhi. You swap the pieces. Sure, the Raptors played a little bit different with Kawhi and Gasol and Danny Green than they did with Jonas Valanciunas and DeMar DeRozan. But in a lot of ways, what they were doing was the same. Putting the ball in Kawhi's hands or DeMar's hands. This is a very big difference over a 7-game series. You might be talking about an extra 20 to 25 points. And in games that sometimes come down to 1 or 2 points, 25 points over a 7-game span does change the series. I mentioned before that Luka Doncic scores 1.18 points per possession, that Siakam scores 1.15 points per possession, and that Barnes this year is all the way down to 0.98 points per possession. But Kevin Durant scores 1.3 points per possession. I don't know if there are any math nerds out there, but fire up your calculators. If you start winning the possession battle, if you create a system which is tailor-made around a player who is going to make so many decisions in the offense, swapping a guy like Pascal Siakam for a guy like Kevin Durant takes your offense from 9th or 10th in the NBA and firmly puts it top 3. That is the gap between 1.15 points per possession and 1.3 points per possession, especially when you start playing it out over an 82-game season or a 7-game series. Durant-Siakam is one part of this equation. But what about the other side of this equation, which is Scotty and Luka? So Luka Doncic is not a great shooter. I know that people think he's a great shooter because he hits a lot of these long bombs, but he's not a great three-point shooter. On his career, he is a 33% three-point shooter. This year, he's shooting 28% from 3. Teams love Luka shooting threes because that means he's not going to go in the post. Scotty Barnes, to his credit, is a 35% shooter this year from 3. So the differences are not nearly as glaring as you might imagine. Luka is a very assertive and very aggressive offensive player. Both are about 6'7" to 6'8" guards. They have elite court vision. I do think that Luka is a way better scorer, way more refined, has a way bigger bag, ton of counters. But the way that they generate mismatches in the post and the way that they create space is actually remarkably similar. What I think makes this comparison most lucid and somewhat coherent is the passing. Even if Luka is ahead of Barnes in almost everything offensively, I do believe that Barnes is willing to work hard to at least bridge the gap a little bit by year 4, which includes working on footwork, working on counters, working in the post, getting more assertive on offense. There are advantages that Scotty enjoys that Luka can't even dream of. He is a bigger athlete, he is a longer athlete, he is a quicker athlete, and the fact that Scotty is also going to eventually become a very positive defender for the Raptors, the matchup between these two could be somewhat comparable in terms of impact. So while I'm not sure that the Raptors are interested in trading Siakam for Kevin Durant, and while I'm not entirely sure that Scotty and Luka are comparable players or that Scotty will ever be able to bridge the tremendous gap that exists between the two players right now, I wanted to make this video largely to lay down my thoughts on why I think I might be wrong about the Raptors offense and why there is at least some logic to how they're playing and why they're playing this way. The Toronto Raptors are once again at the crossroads. A homegrown star who has consistently come up short in the playoffs, on the verge of a contract extension that might backfire, in a conference where he's not one of the top 3 players. A team captain and a best friend who may sour in the event of a trade. An emerging star waiting in the wings that you hold on to at all costs. And a disgruntled top 5 player with a checkered injury history who may offer only a sliver of a contention window. Run it back? Prey on luck? Hope to become one of the few teams in NBA history to win without a top 5 player? Or patiently go through the growing pains and hope that the emerging star in question can take an unprecedented jump in time to line up with the current core? The Raptors could contend for a decade as Kevin Durant gracefully passes the baton to Scotty Barnes. or it could lead to absolutely nothing but a series of playoff heartbreaks. Anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think about this. What do you think about a potential Siakam and Durant swap? Let me know what you think about the Scotty and Luka comp. Am I completely out to lunch, or are you sort of seeing it? Hit subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help the channel out a lot. And check out some of our other videos. That also helps a lot.
What more could you have done to slow Kevin down?
I promise we tried.
The toughest matchup that I've had to deal with.
The most unguardable human that's ever been created.
KD is a certified killer.
He is probably the most elite scorer in NBA history.
The best offensive player in the game.
The narrative is going to be, well, he has to go prove it by himself.
Interesting. It is interesting to think about how much work went into that video and how maybe I feel differently about certain things that I said then versus what I know now, how it turned out. But I'm really happy that I saw Barnes of Scotty saying that video was fantastic, brought back a few nice memories. Absolutely. You know, this is an archive, you know, at this point. Add an old video at the end of your live streams that's relevant to the current topic. It's a great way to finish. Yeah, absolutely. You know, some of these old videos, they didn't get as much shine as I would have hoped. There was a particular video that I really, really liked, which I don't think it got a lot of shine, which was 10 things most people don't know about the NBA. There was also like why prospects fail. I feel like some of these videos that weren't very Raptor specific or Scotty specific somehow floated past the algorithm because people didn't want to give them a chance. But I think they're gold mines of, I don't want to say gold mines because I know I can do better. But anyways, it was inspiring to see this. The craft and polish that went into that video and the effort that went into that video is very reminiscent of what you're going to see from that Jokic video tomorrow. I hope you'll like it. I hope you'll subscribe. And I hope that video blows up and gets us past our 10,000 subscribers threshold. I have it on my to-do list for this year, or my, let's not say to-do list. It's my New Year's resolution for this year to get this channel past 20,000 subscribers this year. I am not stopping until we get past 20,000 subscribers. This season, the draft cycle, all of it will be very relevant to that. And yeah, why waste a minute, right? So we get to work now. Got my coffee. Last night, I realized sometimes I'm very tired by the time these lives happen, and so I end up having a coffee, and it's a terrible idea to drink coffee at 1 a.m. because you're bumping till 6 a.m. And I was like, hey, something productive to do till 6 a.m. So going to be doing that for sure. Where will Donovan go? Donovan Mitchell or Donovan Clingan? I don't know which Donovan you're talking about. Yeah, okay, off to the Jokic video. Make sure to hit like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Hitting like on this video costs you nothing, as Sheridan Forbes likes to say. Like it costs you nothing. Yes, Mitchell. Where will he go? Probably New York. I mean, he wants to go to New York. If not New York, maybe Brooklyn. I think Mikal Bridges for Donovan Mitchell, like a deal centered on those two players, it might actually help both teams. I understand Donovan Mitchell's a much better player. I just think the Cavaliers have too much of a good thing with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. I think they need more balance across their roster. They have so much redundancy, and there's diminishing returns when you have too much redundancy. Honestly, if I was the Cavaliers, I would look to trade Darius Garland first and maybe try to resign Donovan Mitchell, because I don't think Darius Garland is ever going to be better than Donovan Mitchell. And, you know, maybe Evan Mobley by next year is capable enough of being more of a force offensively. I know we've been waiting for that, but I remain very bullish on Evan Mobley. And ironically, the guy who fits super well right now, who would fit super well, is actually Lauri Markkanen, and they traded him away for Donovan Mitchell. So go figure. Anyways, talk to y'all later. Peace.